Welcome back. Appleton schools are dealing with a truancy problem, and they are hoping to receive help from the city, perhaps as soon as next month, to address that problem. According to the district, there are 40 high school students that enrolled last fall that have either never attended school or just stopped going. Now, that's only one example. 2 weeks ago, the district asked the city's Common Council to pass an ordinance to address truancy. And we welcome in Greg Harchis. He is the superintendent of the Appleton Area School District. So since that presentation you made just about 2 weeks ago, has this advanced at all with the Common Council, Greg?
So what happened is the subcommittee of the Common Council, which is the Safety and Licensing Committee, met last week, Wednesday, and decided to move it to their May 14th meeting. So just to give time for questions to be answered, for concerns to be addressed, and hopefully in May, the council will better understand what it is that we're asking.
Do you anticipate that there could be some resolution at that meeting in May, or just further discussion?
I think it most likely will be further discussion. You know, the biggest thing for us as a district is, there's a state law that mandates that all children attend school until the age of 18, but that law has to be enforced at the municipal level. And so City of Appleton had an ordinance around student attendance that they repealed in 2019. So we're asking for that to come back, as we've seen that we're struggling to engage with students who are missing 50 to 100 days of school in a year because we don't have anything beyond what the school district can offer in terms of support. So that's what we're looking for, but there's a lot of questions around that. There's a lot of different pieces that have to be in place for something like this to be successful. And so I think there's going to be some amount of work that gets completed prior to May 14th, but I think that's going to be more time of open discussion.
Greg, you mentioned you're asking them to bring it back. Are you asking them to bring it back in the exact same form, or some of these pieces that you alluded to, could it look a little different? And if so, how so?
I think it absolutely could look different and should look different. Over the last 6 years, we've added a lot of support for students in our schools. And so previously, we would rely on things like detentions and suspensions and different punitive measures when a student wasn't attending school, when they were truant. We now recognize that that's not the best way to go about it. So we're much more proactive. We're much more responsive to the needs of the student and the family in terms of how we can get them to attend school more consistently. So what we're looking for certainly is a last resort for those students that just aren't engaging with us, meaning we call their home, we send letters, we go there for a home visit, and they just don't respond. And so that's where we need help from the city.
You mentioned punitive, and my question was going to be, can you be too punitive? And you seem like you already answered that, but will there be a balance between punitive and supportive? Because you can support all you want to some degree, but without some teeth behind it, maybe it's not quite as effective.
Absolutely, and that's what we're struggling with. Is we have, last year, 293 students across our high schools that missed more than 50 days of school. Those are kids we're concerned about because we know with that number of absences, they aren't learning. They most likely are not going to graduate from high school. And we know what the outcomes are for individuals that don't graduate from high school. So that's where our concern is. And so we are looking for any way possible to get those students to engage with us. And we believe that perhaps a citation can be that answer for some students. So that's what we're looking for, is as a very last resort, a citation, much like a speeding ticket or a tobacco possession ticket for an underage student. That's what we're looking for. We're not necessarily looking for anything more punitive than that.
So truancy court is off the table as far as you're concerned?
Well, for us, we don't make those decisions. As a school district, we are not involved in necessarily how a ticket gets adjudicated.
Okay.
And so we're not asking for truancy court to come back. It was very successful for a lot of students. It really helped many students come to school. But then there were also some negative consequences. Like I said, that some of it was on the district where we're overly punitive. So no, we're not asking for truancy court. We're simply asking for a citation. And there's a lot of different ways in how that citation can be handled. Just like a traffic ticket, obviously, whether it's paid or, there's different ways that within the city and the county that can be worked through. And ultimately, the solution is we want kids to come to school, right? And so
Absolutely.
that ticket doesn't necessarily have to be paid if a student can change their behaviors and come to school more consistently.
Greg, just about a year ago, you sat down with our Jason Zimmerman to talk about absentee and truancy issues. It was back in February of 2024. One of the things you highlighted at that time was it was also in the elementary school grades. We've spent some time here. We've mentioned high school kids quite a bit. But how do you address this problem from the bottom up, and what has happened in the years since that interview where maybe you've been able to do some of that?
So the interview that we had was at the conclusion of a large committee that was brought together. So we had a committee of community members, staff members, and parents come together for several months last school year and look for solutions. And some of the priorities that they came up with in terms of recommendations were to improve transportation, and that's more of an elementary issue because our high school kids can use the Valley Transit buses along with obviously the busing that we provide. And so when you look at elementary, you're looking at often challenges that parents face in getting their child to school. So that's a different way to approach attendance and truancy. The high school level, it's often the student who is making decisions. They're no longer sometimes listening to their parents. They're no longer listening to us as the adults in the school. And so we really do separate out the support that we provide and the resources that we give at the elementary level and the support and the resources at the high school level. So we do kind of attack these challenges differently.
All right, Greg, well, thanks so much for the time. We'll keep an eye on this and probably visit with you once there is some type of resolution, and hopefully there's some guidance coming up here in May.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking time to talk about it.